Hello, so we're back with chapter 2 of Brain Saver by Medical Medium, and this chapter is called Your Static Brain. When we talk about the brain, we often simply call it the brain. Do you like this angle? We see it as a round, singular organ. In our daily lives, we refer to the brain like this all the time. My brain's not working. What's wrong with your brain? What do you have? Half a brain? I'm having a brain fart. I've got a brain freeze. Nice going, brainiac. Do you have a brain? We get disconnected from our brain. We see the brain as a single, isolated unit. Sometimes we get even more disconnected, referring to our brain as our head. When someone is dealing with emotional or physical problems, we may ask, what kind of headspace are you in today? Or how's your head? Really, we should be asking, how are your neurons doing today? If we addressed our heads and brains like that, we'd have a new understanding of what goes on inside of them. Rather than seeing our brain as a single, isolated lump of gray matter, a better way to view our brain is as a group of neurons, because the truth is the brain is a complex organ containing billions of neurons. Even if we called the brain a neuron, we'd have a better grasp of how to protect it, and at the same time a better understanding of what goes wrong with it. What do you mean by neurons is likely the response you'd get from someone if you ask how their neurons were doing. It's really just my head that's bothering me. That's because we aren't taught to be in touch with our neurons and central nervous system, which then I have a nervous system poster over there. But there's a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system, and the central nervous system is quite frankly the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord is connected, so that's how it all goes. You should look up the nervous system and maybe just like a little poster to get an overview of what the spinal cord really does. It's pretty crazy. Where was I? Oh yeah. If we were taught, we'd understand the truth that so many of the challenges we face in our health are about our neurons having problems, whether from deficiencies of nutrients and other critical supplies, or from contamination of toxic heavy metals, other contaminants, or viral toxins and poisons, or from neuron damage caused by the electrical heat and intense adrenaline of fight or flight, or emotional injuries. When someone sees a psychiatrist or therapist for emotional or mental support, neurons tend to be the last thing either the professional or person seeking help thinks about. Meanwhile, neurons have everything to do with why the person sought help in the first place. Again, seeing the brain as a group of neurons or even a single neuron is better than seeing the brain as the brain. That's because, for the most part, brain is a mystery word. It keeps us far away from our problems within the brain itself. It keeps us from looking deeper inside us. It is known that the brain can be injured in hundreds of physical ways, yet in the end, they're all lumped together as brain injury. That's how much medical research knows. Doctors. I'm not saying they're not smart, but I am saying they have a long, long way to go. A brain injury, when there's hundreds, and it's just all gonna be lumped into one. If you didn't watch my last video, this is Medical Medium Healing Broth. It was hot in the last video, now it's kind of chilly. Lukewarm. Then there's brain injury caused by emotional or mental abuse or trauma, or by hardship that affects us emotionally. The field of neuroscience is only beginning to acknowledge this on the elementary level, much less understand it. Even if all types of brain injury were understood, you'd still see a tendency among us to keep a distance from what's really happening inside our brain. We often don't go there or feel a need to go there. This keeps us from learning what really goes wrong and how to heal the brain and protect it in the first place. There's a classified goal to keep us disconnected from our brain and what's within our brain. We're in a time in history where we're brainwashed like never before. The industries want us to be disconnected from the reality of what's happening inside our brains. If we just point to our head and say we're having a problem in there, the industries reveal in that, because knowing more than this would mean getting closer to the truth of industrial wrongdoing, both in the medical world and other industries. It's best for the classified medical industry, a covert medical entity to which your doctors and their medical communities aren't privy, which was in the little parentheses. If you want to know more about that, there's actually he has much more information on that. It's like there's the medical industry as we know it, and then there's the underground medical industry that even the doctors and the nurses aren't aware of. I mean, I'm sure some are, but the majority aren't. So keep that in mind. There's big pharma, and then there's like the pharma underneath. And they don't know each other exist. Well, the one underneath knows this one exists, but this one doesn't know this one exists. Oh man. So let's just reread that little part. It's best for the classified medical industry, which is a covert medical entity to which your doctors and their medical communities aren't privy, to keep experts in the publicity known medical industry, the medical establishment we all know about, in the dark, just like it's best to keep the people suffering with brain issues in the dark. It keeps us at a distance from what's really happening and why. It's like when you get a diagnosis for, let's say, anxiety, and you say, well, why am I having anxiety? And they say, oh, the doctors or psychiatrists and things, they'll say, oh, you're having anxiety because, you're having a hard time, or it's because of this life event, right? But then it's like, well, no, because I had anxiety before that life event. Oh, well, it's because you're in school. Oh, well, it's because this, it's because that. And they're always going to blame it on something. But why is it happening? Why did it start? What's going on? The deeper why, not the superficial why. What's the deeper, what's the root of the suffering? Knowing that your condition or symptom even is brain related to begin with, and understanding how that relates to the rest of your nervous system. These are critical and often missing pieces in how we think about our health. When you understand your brain as a group of neurons, you have a greater chance of finding relief from your brain-related symptoms and conditions. Healing your brain and getting in touch with your brain on all kinds of levels. Next section, a network of neurons. When it comes to your brain, neurons mean practically everything. Healing brain-related symptoms and conditions, whether those symptoms and conditions are traditionally associated with the brain or not, critically depends on understanding the neurons that reside inside it. Neurons, a type of nerve tissue, are the means by which communication occurs in your nervous system, enabling it to send and receive messages. Neurons are about input and output, and there's lots of different types of neurons too. Neurons are your transcribers, Imagine billions of tiny people inside your brain, like inside out, each sitting at a desk in front of a computer, translating information that's coming in through your ears or eyes or other senses such as smell, taste, or touch, and trying to decipher it. The neuron's transcriber's job is to make sense out of what you're experiencing and then pass that along to the next tiny neuron person inside your brain. The hope is that A, the information travels uninterrupted to the next transcriber or neuron, and B, the next transcriber or neuron takes the information that was just deciphered, keeps it in a purified form, and possibly adds an addendum that's efficient and accurate and prepares it for the next tiny person or neuron inside your brain to receive it. You can even imagine your brain as a tiny spaceship flying through the universe. Your neurons are billions of tiny aliens inside that spaceship, all communicating together. At the same time, there's a supreme being on the ship watching out for it. That's your soul. Your sensory input isn't the only information your neurons decipher and pass along. They also translate information about your body processes. Neurons apply to every single function your body has, and how healthy your neurons are determines how comfortable you're going to be in your mind and body. That is, neurons are involved in both mental functioning and your state of health. When you have brain-related symptoms, even on the mildest scale, such as mild fatigue and mild brain fog, it's really because neurons can't decipher information properly to the next group of neurons. Something is hindering the pathway where the electricity is traveling. Did you know your body is energy and you are energy and you're electric? Something is blocking or otherwise impeding, I think, the pathway within the synapses. So the neurons sending out electrical impulses are not reaching other neurons that need that information, or not reaching the neurons as intended. You can see this in everyday life when you're telling someone a story about apples and find out the whole time they thought you were talking about oranges. Any kind of impediment within a person's neurons can mean that information their neurons process gets altered, affecting the person's ability to focus, listen, or properly receive information from a conversation or story, like ADHD. That's basically what he's saying. And I think there's like a whole chapter on ADHD, if not this book, another book. Then that person may tell someone else an entirely different version of the original story that was told to them. This is how gossip and rumors can be twisted and turned into hearsay. As the story goes from person to person, it goes through each person's contaminated, impeded, blocked, or diminished neurons, and the story changes, just like the game of telephone as a kid. I have to admit, game of telephone, I was one of the people who just changed it. I don't know why. I was like, this would just be so fun if I just like straight up changed it. Not every time, but I did do that before. I definitely did. I'll probably read, because I am going to break this into a few parts, and it's my wife's birthday, so she wants to watch a movie tonight, and she's actually came in once during this, so yeah, I'll probably just read one more section. It's called Scattered Brains. As electricity travels through an impeded neuron system, it can become diminished, meaning that electricity within the brain is no longer traveling at its full capacity. That is, a group of neurons can receive a fully charged electrical impulse, and then in the process of assimilating and registering that electricity, which is filled with information, and sending it through this synapses to another group of neurons, the electricity can be diminished. When electricity is diminished, the information within can be skewed, changed, and altered. Information within electricity is something that's mysterious and not understood. Wow, this is fascinating. The truth is that electricity isn't just electricity traveling through the brain. It's information traveling within the electricity, kind of like how we use technology today. A thought is not just something that resides within the neurons and glial cells, the brain tissue, and stays there. A thought can travel within the electricity that leaves a neuron. Electricity can carry tremendous amounts of information, so the electricity running through the brain is more than just a hot wire. Electricity traveling through your brain can even carry information you won't or don't use. It's there for the taking within the electricity, and we let it slip by because we're focused on another piece within that information. We're trying to tell someone something that we're getting from that electricity, and at the same time, leaving out information that's within that electricity as well. We may feel there was something more to say, yet we don't know what it was because it's already passed by us. In one of the videos that I've done reading this book, I actually had this exact thing happen. I was saying something I totally forgot. And I definitely still have some healing to do. I've been using medical medium information for 3 years, and it's a lifestyle change. It's not a diet, so I've definitely have more healing to do, and I'm so excited. Our companion may say, "Were you going to say something else?" And we may reply, "Yeah, I was so busy with other thoughts, I can't remember what it was." We're not having a memory lapse. It's information that slipped by inside our brain's electrical grid that we didn't access. Well, how do we access it? It doesn't say that. That's just my question. Damaged neurons can change thoughts, altering how someone perceives information. That's because damaged neurons means altered, disorganized, and poorly reorganized electricity. As that electricity travels through synapses and heads to another group of neurons, information in that electricity could become disorganized before it enters the new group of neurons. And if any of the neurons in that new group are damaged, hindered, or injured, then the information gathered by that electricity gets disorganized once again as it leaves that group of neurons. Disastrous. It has already changed before it heads to another group of neurons. So it's not just brain tissue that harbors thoughts and controls how we feel and how we physically function. Electricity itself also has power over thoughts and physical control. One job of neurons is to eventually pass along information to the brain's billions of glial cells where information stays stored, cataloged, and organized. If glial cells are clogged, contaminated, saturated, disoriented, or even mutated from poisons and toxins, a disconnect and breakdown can occur between your neuron system and your glial cell system. Glial cells can lose their ability to properly store information. And I am not totally sure what glial cells are, but I'm totally going to go research this. Some neurons in the brain, not all, have the ability to spot check and cross-reference new information with old information. When healthy, these neurons have infinite access to glial cell storage. That is, storage bins of old information from the past, even from before neurons were damaged. Electricity shoots out in waves from these neurons, rolling along glial cells to gather information, and then the electricity filled with glial cells information rolls back to the neurons. Well, let's back up. wow, when we're healthy, these neurons have infinite access to glial cell storage. That is a storage bin of old information from the past, even before neurons became damaged. Does that mean we can remember anything? Hypothetically, this would be amazing for tests, right? I've heard of people who have photographic memories, and I can have a photographic memory for a very short period of time. Like if I'm gonna have a test in school that I'm in right now in anatomy, if I need to get a good grade, I'll just cram myself, I'll look at this, for example, I'll read it, and I got like 5-10 minutes, and I can just like picture that 100%, and and it's like, how do you know the muscles? And it's like, I don't, I'm looking at the screen, hold on, like I'm looking at the poster, right? So I have about 5-10 minutes, but it would be nice if I didn't have to freaking cram. And of course, I'm still like, the goal is to know the muscles or whatever. That's just an example. But there are some things where it's like, do I really need to know this, or I just need to know this for the test? Another thing I'm interested in, I wonder if we can access, kind of like Avatar from Avatar The Last Airbender, can we access our past bodies? Because it's the same soul. If I can access my soul, which is what I've been trying to do for a few years now, and truly knowing who am I, because I am not this body. Who am I? My soul. My soul has been in other bodies, I'm sure of it. Can I access them? Can I access their information? This is a game changer. Oh, there's a little bit more in this section. I'm going to finish it and then close out. When electricity hits a damaged neuron, on the other hand, small outward explosions occur off the neuron, kind of like solar flares off the sun. These flares enter adjacent brain tissue and glial cells, gathering bits and pieces of information, and then subside and renter. I don't know what that means. The neuron with that disorganized information to try to cross-reference and reorganize. Since the neuron is already hindered, damaged, or compromised in some way, it doesn't have the full capacity to piece together the scattered information. Disorganized information ends up traveling from damaged neurons to damaged neurons. The reason we can each experience the same event so differently from each other is because of our damaged neurons, leading to disorganized information. In the end, we may not all give an accurate account of what happened. Say we were camping out by a lake with friends and a flashing light flew through the sky. One person may say, I was there and it was a firefly. Someone else may say, I was there too and it was a falling star. Someone else believed it was a distant headlight from a truck further off toward the horizon. This understanding of our neurons' impeded functioning is why when we ask if someone's feeling okay, we should really ask, how's the electricity in your brain? Is it disorganized? How are the neurons today? Have any of them repaired from your night's sleep? Have your glial cells been heating up too much? Are your neurons saturated in toxins today? I'm like trying to imagine myself right now if someone's having, I have a lot of classmates that have anxiety and bipolar and just generally not mentally well. I can't imagine asking some of my friends like, how are your neurons saturating? Wait, are your neurons saturated in toxins today? I tend to be more on the side of like, how you doing? Are you doing okay? Don't look okay. So like, let me, I do massage therapy, so I'm just like, and Reiki, I Reiki one, and I just care so much. And now reading this and like knowing what's truly happening, it's like, oh man, how can I help? I feel like that. Yeah, how can I help? Well, we do have a nutrition business though, so we're helping. Our nutritionist our nutrition business is based off of medical medium information, which is also why I want to share this information. I want it to get out here. Communicating about our brains at this level would bring about a whole new understanding of our health conditions and well-being. Yeah, it would. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here. Oh man, this is awesome. We're gonna stop at interpreting the static. That will be on the next. I might break up chapter 3 into 2 or 3 parts. We'll see. Peace out, y'all.